and it's making the connection. We are live. Hi. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how you doing?
Yay, how are you?
Doing well.
Well, good. Thank you for joining us today. You're the first of a series of 3, and we are calling our series Unsung Heroes of Disaster Preparedness. And what that means is you're our unsung hero, sir.
Awesome, I appreciate it.
Well, this is being sponsored by 3 organizations, CVNL, Solano Volunteers. This program is the brainchild of Rhonda Smith, who runs Solano Volunteers, and also Empower Solano. I run Empower Solano. So it's being sponsored by those 3 organizations. We're proud to be here with you. And I'm going to set this up by reading your bio that Rhonda set me up with. And it was wonderful, by the way, reading your bio and getting to know you through your bio. And now I get to introduce you to our communities. Is that okay?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit about you. Jason Roberts is 37, and you have set a goal to help build a stronger community services for underserved and at-risk populations. And I really appreciate that. So you are a lieutenant in the California National Guard with 13 years of service, some of it as an enlisted man. You're a native of Vallejo, but you were raised in Fairfield until age 21. Afterward, you joined the active duty Army, living in Arizona, Monterey, and North Carolina. You've lived back in Fairfield since December of 2009. A little bit about your education. You're a graduate of Fairfield High, class of 2001. You have an associate's degree in computer science from Heald. You have you attended the Defense Language Institute studying French in 2005. You have a Bachelor of Science in biology and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California. You are pursuing a master's degree in public leadership at the University of San Francisco, and you attended the Joint Air Space Operations Command and control. You have a fellowship with Clay Hunt Fellowship Program, and you are on the All Hazards Incident Management team.
Yes.
Did I get it?
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, to prepare for you, I almost learned a sentence of French just to practice with you, and I decided not to embarrass myself.
Yeah, my French is horrible right now anyways.
Is it rusty?
Yeah, I can still read it pretty well, but speaking, if you don't do it regularly, it's very, very difficult to keep up with. So,
got it. Well, you know, it's 9/11. And before we started, I wanted to ask you, you know, where were you during 9/11?
When it first happened, I was at home, but then had school that day. I was actually going to Heald, so I was on my way to commuting from Fairfield to Concord, and didn't fully realize what was happening because I was 18 years old, just graduated a couple months prior, and then sorry, dog's barking at me. And then I went to school and we all watched the news. Hold on 1 second.
Oh no, it's okay. We like dogs.
Yeah, if I'm not paying attention to him, he gets a little, a little upset. Coming on.
Yeah, he's like, you put me out. What's that about?
Yeah,
So you were 18 and on your way to college.
yeah.
That's that's amazing. And so do you feel like it's informed your life?
Yeah, somewhat. Because while we're in class, actually watching it unfold on the news, there was two other guys in the class that actually got called out that were prior military and got called back in that day. So they had to leave class like in the middle of the day, and yeah, go report back in. So
Right, right. So for me, I was here, I lived here, and it was interesting because I was just coming back from my honeymoon that day before. And so and that weekend, so I had a honeymoon and found out I was pregnant and was watching it on TV. So even though I lived here in California, I'm from New York. And I remember looking at the Twin Towers. I went to high school in New York, Long Island. We had our prom at the top of the Twin Towers. I almost took a job there 4 years before, did not get the job, but got the job that landed me in California. So, but I remember going up the stairs. I remember like you have to take the stairs and then you have to get on the elevator to, to go to maneuver in the Twin Towers. And I remember thinking, these elevators, like it took so long to get up and down on the elevators because it was such a tall building. And I remember feeling uncomfortable about it. So watching, events unfold 9/11 and seeing elevators, and I feel like there was or maybe later I saw footage of an elevator dropping all that. Like it traumatized me. I was pregnant and it informed my pregnancy. I remember being pregnant and hearing I would not go over bridges for a long time. I would not get in elevators for a long time. And I remember being pregnant and hearing things outside and like, just going out and looking to see what was coming. And now I have this child that was born after 9/11. And a few years ago, we heard a plane fly low and he ran and I looked outside and he was outside looking and I'm like, wow, I wonder if I don't know. So anyway, it absolutely, being a New Yorker, it's it absolutely felt personal. So anyway, so that's 9/11, and we're just gonna think about today, all those heroes that passed away, those firemen that ran in those burning buildings, and police officers, and all of those that lost their lives.
yeah, I mean, it's still losing lives from all the chemicals and second, third order of effects from the disaster. Cancers and different health issues that have arisen from it.
Right, right. Well, with that, we want to know more about uh, how how you how you work today. You're an unsung hero of disaster preparedness, and you were picked for a reason. And we want to know how a little bit about how you're involved in disaster response activities here in Solano, and also we've recently had a fire impacts in
Yeah.
Solano. So we want to hear about that too.
Okay. So I started volunteering with the disaster response, emergency management stuff back in 2014. I was just a volunteer. I just show up every once in a while when they needed manual labor, like to help clean up. My first response was the Napa Sonoma earthquake in 2014. Relatively small scale, but yeah, there were some homes that were damaged. So I signed up for Team Rubicon, which is a veteran-based disaster response organization. So we're about 70% veterans or so, about 20% first responders, about 10% just civilians that feel like dealing with us and getting out there and doing some work. And so we take the skills of veterans, dealing with combat zones and high stress situations, and train them to respond to disasters because they're a little bit more used to that type of environment than most other people. So instead of taking in the environment, they can just get straight to work. They look at what's going on around them and just go straight to work instead of dealing with the scene itself. Um, yeah, since then, just did a little bit of volunteering here and there. And then 2017, I started to get a lot more involved. With Team River kind of went out to Houston for Hurricane Harvey. It was in a town called Friendswood. And yeah, ever since there, spending a week there doing hurricane recovery and flood recovery, I've been very, very active in it.
Well, what does it look like? What do you do exactly? You're informed, you're activated
Yeah.
for an emergency. Can you tell us quickly what that looks like for you?
Yeah. So typically what we do is we try to find people locally as much as possible because they know the area is more affected. And then once they kind of saturate or hit their wall with how many volunteers they get locally, we start branching out further and further. Eventually, if it's a big enough disaster, we go nationwide and bring people in from all over the country. So we typically get alert, either text message or email saying, hey, would you like to deploy to wherever the disaster occurred? And hit yes, and you go fill out a form on your availability. And if it matches up with when they need people, they'll fly you out. It's all expenses paid. So travel, food, everything is completely covered when you respond with Team Rubicon.
Nice,
And
nice.
then when you get there, it really depends on what the disaster is. If it's a hurricane, a lot of wind damage and typically flood damage as well. And a lot of different services are offered, such as just cleaning out all the wet, damaged property, drywall, carpet. If there's hazardous trees, we run chainsaw crews to help clear out any hazards. If the need is large enough, we can bring in heavy equipment like excavators and skid steers to move the much larger objects. But we do smaller stuff as well, like help with volunteer management because any disaster, even here in Solano County, is you get a lot of people that want to help now that something has happened. And a lot of times that can be overwhelming for cities, especially smaller cities, and you need somebody to just kind of take charge of that and manage the people. So.
Right. So tell us what we just had a natural disaster here just 2 weeks ago. What did that look like from an emergency preparedness point of view?
Well, for me, I was also evacuated at 2:30 in the morning that Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah. So I was evacuated that Wednesday through Friday. So that was a nice, lovely awakening. I was kind of monitoring a little bit because with my work at Cal OES, I kind of track any fires that are near where I'm at and where friends and family are at. And then, so after I went to bed, I got a knock on the door at like about 2 in the morning, 2:15 in the morning. As my neighbor, people were trying to call us, and they're like, "Yeah, the fire's getting close." So I walked out there and looked, and it's like, yep, yeah, it's time to go. That covered a lot of ground in the last hour since I went and laid down.
Wow. Wow. So did you evacuate and then activate yourself too at the same time?
Yeah. So once got the house cleared out, the girlfriend, the pets, and key documents and everything I needed to get out of the house. Once we got settled, I stopped by the evacuation shelters, see if they need anything. Because with Team Rubicon, I have a lot of volunteers and a lot of resources. And so I was just stopping by to see if the shelters needed anything. Because a lot of times when towns that aren't used to disasters, things can kind of get overwhelming and they don't really know how to process a mass influx of people because they evacuated a lot of people in a very short period of time. And just seeing what they needed. And throughout the day, more stuff continued to unfold. Another organization that I've worked with at almost every disaster I've been at is World Central Kitchen. So I got notified that they came into town, and they were a huge help serving the community here.
I saw pictures that I believe, maybe they were prepping food for the evacuees. Wow. So, it's interesting being able to talk to you because I live in Fairfield, Cordelia. So, we weren't evacuated, but we were right across the highway from I think they called it a pending evacuation, or, kind of wait and see.
Yeah.
And so, and it's interesting hearing what your instinct is. You got the knock on the door and you were outside looking. And uh, uh, when we were watching, my husband would do that, go outside and look. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's a man thing. I just wanna go see.
Yeah, then like because I saw what it looked like before I went to bed, and then I can kind of see how quickly it's moving from when.
Oh boy, you were able to really gauge it from there.
Yeah.
Wow. And then 2 weeks later, we're talking about it. So did you want to tell us, because I tell you, there's a lot of what you're saying that feeds into this presentation that I want to show our community, because we're talking about emergency preparedness,
Mhm.
and you're hitting on some key 5 steps. Did I say five with a three? 5 steps that we want people to be prepared for the next emergency, you know. And so, and some of the things that you are saying, you're feeding right into my presentation without even knowing it. So let me cue that up. Here we are. And there's 5 simple steps to prepare for a wildlife, earthquake, and a flood. And our major sponsor is Listos, California. And there's a few of the 5 steps that you talked about. So you talked about getting alerts, making a plan, packing a to-go bag, building a stay box, and helping friends and neighbors. And a few of those you touched on. So let's let's go right into get alerts. So you got to knock on the door.
Yeah.
Did you have do you did you have an alert on your phone?
Yeah, I have a couple set up, but a lot of times with alerts, what we run into, especially with fires, is if the cell towers happen to go down or it burns through your internet company's infrastructure, then you may no longer get alerts or have cell phone signal. So yeah, it's important, especially for the early warning stuff. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't necessarily work all the time. For example, like I didn't get the alerts this last time because a lot of times when I'm home, I stick my phone on airplane mode and just use my Wi-Fi.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
and then so yeah, there were people trying, but then the internet went down. When that happens, yeah, I no longer have connection to the outside world, and that's when the neighbor came by and said, "People were trying to call you." As
Wow.
oh, yep, don't have any internet, so didn't get
Wow.
this plan.
Well,
Oh,
I used to have Nixle.
mhm.
The first time we were really just majorly impacted by a disaster, I found out about Nixle. And then since then, I've shifted to Alert Solano. And unfortunately, my phone is always on, connected to the internet. It's got a back. Yeah, so we get our alerts and we count on them. And I really like Alert Solano because you not only can put in, first of all, it's simple to do, and then also you can put in alerts for not only where you live but where you work. I have, when I set it up, I had a high schooler at the time. So I also had an alert for where his school was. So I just felt like it was good coverage for Alert Solano. But for anyone that's watching this outside of Solano, there's calalerts.org.
Mhm.
So the second point of the three is to make a plan. Do you have a plan? Did you create a contact list for who you would contact?
Luckily, I have a lot of family in the area. It's kind of a not a written list, but kind of a known list in my head. But yeah, making a plan is probably the biggest aspect for the individual because while the city or county may have a plan, you always plan for the worst. So don't expect that they're going to help you. Even though they'll do their best, but if it's a huge disaster, their resources are very limited. And so more than likely you're going to have to take care of yourself. So you're having a plan with, yeah, staging all your stuff, or not all your stuff, but at least have it somewhat ready to go. Make sure everybody in your family knows the plan. Because if this would have happened, say when I was at work, and then my girlfriend is at home, if she doesn't know the plan or know a plan, then she'll be lost and trying to figure it out on her own. So yeah, it's important. Yeah, making a good thorough plan, and also contingency. So it's like, for example, when they started evacuating certain areas of Vacaville, a lot of people were trying to go to Fairfield, and then 80 got shut down. And so if that was your only plan to go 80 west, then you kind of stuck there. So have multiple plans. But if I try to leave and can't go that direction, where's someplace else I can go the other direction?
You know, what I just realized is that my plan is outdated. When we did our plan, I worked from home. My son went to Rodriguez High School, and then my husband was an Amazon driver and worked outside of the area. So the plan was for for us to go to Rodriguez High School, thinking it would probably be an evacuation center too. So for him to stay put, and we go to him, and I'm walking distance from Rodriguez High School. And then we wouldn't know where my husband was, where he would be doing his delivery. So, but that was the anchor. But now my son doesn't attend Rodriguez High School. So we probably need to sit and think about what is the plan. The one thing we do have is we have a family member that's Emeryville. And so we have keys to his house, and an open invitation that if there's ever an emergency, we get in the cars and we go to Emeryville. So, but just being able to think about it and talk about it with the family, I think is key, especially with everybody knowing. If everybody doesn't know the plan, then there's going to be a breakdown, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's key thing is making a plan, is make sure everybody knows the plan. Otherwise, it just kind of falls apart.
Right, right. Well, let me show you the next.
Yep.
Okay, we're talking about evacuation plans. And we talked a little bit about that, identifying safe places to meet and practice multiple ways to get there. We've never done that. We should think about it, how to do that. So then you talked about packing a to-go bag.
Yeah.
Did you know you were going to feed into my presentation?
Nope. Did not know that at all. But yeah, there's a reason why there's 5 steps. It's all the things that you need for getting prepared for disaster and responding to one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so go bag is really important, especially larger disasters. So for example, I have backpacks all the houses, do a lot of outdoor stuff, so it's pretty easy for me to grab one. But yeah, one of the big things that I have set aside is I have a small little lockbox that has all the important documents like titles of the cars, birth certificates, passports, a little bit of money. Because yeah, if you happen to go somewhere and yeah, the internet's down or whatever's down, then you're not going to be able to use your ATM or credit cards or anything like that. And yeah, places will still be able to take cash that way. And then if it does become a bigger disaster and FEMA gets involved, if you don't have identification cards or insurance stuff, it's going to be very, very difficult to put in a claim with them. And then another one, which I just found out a couple of days ago, because I have some friends that lost a house off Pleasant Valley Road, and somebody started a GoFundMe to help do some fundraising, get them back on their feet. But if they require appropriate documentation to receive that money, and you have 90 days to submit that, otherwise they just take that money. They don't refund it back to who donated it. And so that's one hoop that they're jumping through because they didn't have any of their identifying documents that they needed for it.
What we did is we took pictures of everything around the house. We went to every room and took pictures, and then I put put it on on a memory stick. So that's part of our plan too. But now I'm thinking, maybe I should just print it just in case I'm somewhere with no electricity and I can't access the memory stick. Or maybe I'll put it on a cloud. So you're really just talking to you through this is giving me some additional ideas. The other idea is, and for us it's going to be difficult, but we started because we have so many photo albums. So anytime we're talking about emergency, my husband's like, no, don't touch my photo albums. We're going to very quickly load them in a bin and put them in the car. And I'm just like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So I started with a few pages of our albums, and I think we're just going to kind of make it a family project that we just scan all those in. Because if we need to get out in a few minutes, I don't want to be fooling around with a bin of pictures.
Yeah. Like here, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to say about like military documents, awards, my diplomas from college and stuff. But in the end, all I left was with my little lockbox with all the key documents, my laptop, a couple days of clothes. And then like a phone charger, because a lot of people forget about that. If electricity goes out, then if you need to charge your phone, if you don't have a battery pack that's already charged, ready to go, then you're gonna be kind of stuck.
Right.
And then everything else, like a lot of the documents I have scanned already, so they're in the cloud or on Google Drive or something. So while it'd be nice to have the original, I might be able to request duplicates on certain things, but it's in the end, it's just paper, and then I can always get more. Photos are a little bit different, but yeah, if you have the opportunity to scan them either yourself with a photo scanner, I know there's some companies out there that, well, you have to pay for it. You can send them a bunch of photos and they scan all of them for you. That's a good backup to save you some time and space.
Right. Well, there listed is the disaster ready guide. Well, I guess maybe we should do this. So we have the disaster ready guide, and we have in Solano County, it's a Brand Gov, an organization I run, and also Mina Diaz, and also Project Blessing Bags. The three organizations, we're at events all around Solano County, and we're giving out this disaster ready guide, and it's really a great handy tips. It's going to look very similar to the presentation, but what I do like about it is there's areas that you can like fill out and make customizable to you, emergency contacts and different things. So I'm going to drop a link of how to download this directly as well. Actually, I'll just tell you what it is, listoscalifornia.org. So listoscalifornia.org, you go there and you can just download the disaster ready guide, or you're gonna find it at the bottom of this presentation, because I'll send it out. So let's go to the fourth of 5, which is build a stay box, and preparing for that for at least 3 days. So, and in that stay box, I know we put non-perishable food, water, trash bags, and other, I bet you Jason is getting his dog again. I want to see him at the end of the presentation. Jason, I want to see the dog at the end of the presentation. But this is build a stay back. Oh my gosh. Oh, Jason. We can't hear you though. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, started barking a lot, so essentially just room is me.
Well, what's your dog's name?
Cash.
Ash?
Cash.
Cash. All right, Cash.
Yeah, he's an old grumpy man now. So
well, Cash wanted in. He said, "Why are you putting me out?"
Like,
So do
why you lock me in the other room?
do you have a stay box at home?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a multi-purpose stay box. Is a lot of the stuff that I have in there is also the same stuff I use for like my backpacking uh, stuff when I go out. And so yeah, it's like similar stuff like either water or a way to get water. So backpacking, have a little portable water pump where if I need to, then I can always go filter out some pool water from my house if needed. Uh,
Mhm.
and then yeah, trash bags and stuff for if it rains. And then yeah, non-perishable food. Cans work. A lot of times those do have somewhat of expiration on it. It's usually a very long time. Backpacking food works great from like Backpacker's Pantry or something because it's freeze dried food and it's actually pretty good now. It's come a long way in the last about.
I've heard that.
It's actually some meals are actually really good. So
Moved from tasting like cardboard?
yeah.
Okay, good.
So.
And where would we get that type of food?
You can get on Amazon, go to REI, Walmart. Some Walmarts carry it. So anywhere there's like outdoor sections in stores, like in Walmart and Target, some of them have them, some don't. But definitely
What would we
Amazon.
search for?
You can type in
What's
like
cheaper?
backpacking food,
Oh,
or
okay.
there's yeah, Backpacker's Pantry and Mountain House Meals are the two main brands that are out there right now. But
Okay.
there's dozens of them now. So
That's good. You know, I don't feel like we're doing the stay box as well as we should because we've it's a family of three and two are men that eat a lot. And so we've grown out of the stay box. So really there's things in the stay box, but then we have three big cases of water. We have, you know, a whole bunch of trash bags and just different kind of utility type of items. And now we have two small boxes of perishable. And I'm like, okay, is all this supposed to go into the stay box or having it nearby is good enough?
yeah, I mean, if you have a pantry that's stocked, like if you're going to be staying home for the stay box, if you have a pantry that's set up, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a box. It's just you have those supplies readily on hand where you don't have to go out and try to buy them. Yeah, like similar to when COVID-19 all started, people went out with mass buying stuff.
I know.
Yeah, so if you already have them on hand and already prepared, then it's not an issue. So yeah, whether it's a physical box or like a pantry or a cabinet that has all this stuff in there, it's good to go. And then for real emergencies, there's quite a few companies out there that make pre-made boxes. You can say, oh, I have a family of 4 to 5. It just comes in like a giant bucket essentially with all the stuff in there for food and water.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is really good to know. Well, let's talk about number 5, which is really interesting. You are the first person that I've ever heard say that a neighbor knocked on my door.
Mm-hmm.
So, did that happen because you do emergency response and they're on a list for you? Like, I don't know if the neighbors are going to knock on my door and see how I am.
Just so happened is the person that lives across the street from us used to work with my girlfriend years ago. So they have some friends. So some of their friends were calling, trying to get a hold of us. And so when they couldn't get a hold of us, they called her, and then she walked across the street to knock on our door. But yeah, big thing, especially with the alerts. If you have any older neighbors that aren't technologically savvy and signed up for alerts or don't use smartphones or anything like that. For example, my other neighbor, I had to walk over to her house next door because I was like, Vicky's lights aren't on, so I wonder if she knows what's going on. And so I walked next door and knocked on her door, and yeah, she didn't know what was going on. So
Right. You know, what I've realized is through the pandemic, I've gotten closer to my neighbors. I know them now. And we speak more now than we did. And it probably has something to do with me running in and out and in the community all the time. But I think it's wonderful that you have neighbors that knocked on your doors and you're saying, you know, to you're saying to make sure that you check on your senior neighbors, your elderly neighbors. That's so important. That's so important. So that being part of the plan is really, really key. So we're going to skip
And
questions unless you have any
uh,
questions for yourself.
no, I'm good. Don't have any questions for myself.
Well, we want people to know and to be empowered to know that you are the change, I am the change, we are the change. Us being informed and knowledgeable about emergency preparedness is so important. Did you have any story? I guess you have a ton of stories. Did you have any other stories you wanted to share?
Um, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff because most of the time I go in for the recovery aspects of it, not involved with the active disasters. The only one that I respond to with that disaster still going on was Paradise. So I was up there with the chainsaw crew, helping out in the north side of Chico and Paradise, and then eventually up in the Magalia area. Um, but probably the most interesting one I worked on and the largest one was Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, I've been to a few hurricanes. When I went down to the Bahamas, especially, I was on the island of Abaco, and it's a much lower income island than the other islands. And there's certain areas that are almost shanty town like, and they're just completely gone. There's like nothing left at all. There's small town there, then yeah, you go up, it is just completely leveled to the ground and absolutely nothing left. And so that was a very interesting, it is eye-opening for a lot of people, because that was our first, or through Team Rubicon, our first major international deployment where we moved a lot of people, because most of our international deployments are small groups of specialized people like medical or people that manage volunteers and help communities at the general staff level to just get the communities back on their feet, work with the leaders, but sending a lot of volunteers, especially if they weren't used to seeing something like that, it made a huge impact on a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, my story isn't as amazing as yours, but it might be helpful. Before I started thinking about emergency preparedness, during an earthquake, I thought you were supposed to get underneath a door, under a door frame. And until recently, the last year or so, I found out that if you are, if it's a earthquake, you get underneath a kitchen, a desk, like right now I'm at a desk, get underneath the desk or a table. And if you're asleep during a earthquake, you're supposed to, so I thought you're supposed to jump up and run underneath the door jam. No, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to ball up, as tight of a ball as possible. And you're supposed to cover your head. So if things are coming down, you're in this small footprint. And everyone should practice and know how to do that. So that's what I learned, just becoming more aware in how to protect, everyone in the house.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So let me stop the screen and then we'll do any final words that you have.
Yeah, so yeah, now that the fire is settled and people have had time to sit and reflect on it, I thought the city did a pretty good job with their updates on the evacuations and how things were going within the city, especially the fire department and the county OES. But there was some confusion with like mass shelters opening up. People didn't know where exactly to. They knew the places to go, but they didn't know which ones to go to. So having a little bit better prepared plan for the city and the county itself would go a long way. Like setting an order of precedence, be like, hey, the shelter opens up first. Once it reaches X amount of capacity, then we'll open up a second one. And then having like memorandums of use or understanding with hospitals and stuff outside of the city, which most counties and cities usually do. Because last thing you want to do is set up a hospital or a care facility inside the town where the disaster is occurring. Then all of a sudden it spreads, and now you have to evacuate all those people out of the hospital as well. Yeah, that's a big one. But moving forward, the next big issue, probably in the next 2 months or so, is usually after a wildfire, because all the vegetation's burned, and depending on how hot the fire got, it burns like the top few inches of soil. So typically when the first big rain comes, we're going to be dealing with flooding and mudslides. And so there definitely needs to be a plan put in place how to deal with those, especially the unincorporated areas where they don't necessarily get city help because they belong to the county. And so off Pleasance Valley Road, there's a lot of hills. So I guarantee there's going to be a lot of flooding off of that area, then areas of Bucktown and some areas of Sonoma that have been burned with very steep hillsides. There's probably going to be mudslides there. And so the city needs to be prepared and how to respond to those, because the equipment needed and the personnel needed to get in those areas, if it does trap people, is vastly different than what they typically deal with in town for their normal response.
Right. Thank you for talking about evacuation centers. Mayor Lori Wilson out of Sassoon City. Sassoon City was prepared and ready for evacuees. They had a system and exactly what to do, and they were able to take the brunt of the lift for the county. Little Sassoon City, because they were prepared. They have a mayor there that's actually Solano County. Sassoon City was impacted by wildfires, I believe 3 or 4 months ago. I know that there was some wildlife that were lost, owls and some rare animals. And because of that, they're hyper aware, and they have a system in place and what to do in an emergency. And I was talking to Mayor Wilson. I'm like, how did you pull that off? And she was like, yeah, we're ready. We're ready. And it made me think, okay, it sounds like some of the other cities aren't ready. We almost need to, take the roadmap that Sassoon City has developed for themselves, for the other cities. So that's something for us to think about as well.
Yeah, another organization that works within the state is there's the CERT programs, the community emergency response teams.
Mm-hmm.
So most cities have them, but they're not very active. People don't know they exist. And yeah, they help communities prepare for disasters, similar like a lot of stuff that we've been discussing. So they teach classes and get people connected within their communities. And yeah, it's been around for a long time, but hardly anybody knows about them. So they just need to get the word out and then start training people in different areas of the cities to learn how to respond and prepare their neighborhoods for this type of thing. Because it's like, yeah, it's happened now, but it's not a matter of if it happens again, because it's going to happen again at some point. And so take a look at what we did this time, see what we did right, see what we did wrong, and improve off the previous plan. So we're just better prepared, and the community is better prepared for the next time.
That's right. That's right. Well, before we sign off, I understand that you're running for office.
Yeah. The shameless plug is, I'm running for city council in Vacaville for District 5. This first year, Vacaville split into districts. And so it's going to be a very interesting vote. And one of the big things is District 5 here in Vacaville, pretty much the entire district was evacuated because most of the neighborhoods back up into open land where the fire just came over the hills. Some places were affected by the fires directly. And so I think, just having somebody on the council that is versed in emergency preparedness and speaks the emergency management language to work with the fire and police, and even with my work at Cal OES, working with the state assets, would be a good tool to have on the city council, or a minimum, get an emergency preparedness committee going on. And I'd love to be a part of that at least. So.
I think you should do both. I think that's pretty amazing that District 5 was evacuated, and we have someone that has a mastery and passion for something that just impacted that community. I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's just pure coincidence. I mean, it was going to happen. I was talking about it a couple months ago with people. It was like, I haven't seen a plan for backflow, or at least a recent one. And yeah, then we get hit by a major fire, which affected myself as well as everybody else in my district. So, and a lot of
Right,
other people in Backville and Fairfield as well.
right,
So,
right. Well, Cash is sick of our shenanigans,
yep.
but likes his name called because he's gotten quiet.
Yeah. Here's his
I
name. Then he waits like, who's talking to me right
but I just want to thank you for your time. I'm so glad that Rhonda Smith made us aware of you. She's right. You are unsung and pretty extraordinary. And I'm pleased to have met you, interviewed you, and was able to talk through these 5 steps with you.
now? Yeah, it was an honor being here. I really appreciate meeting you finally in person, so, or virtually in person. So
Well, yay. Okay.
again in the future with the coads and the boads on the larger scale. But
I have a feeling we will intersect a lot.
yeah,
That's how this works.
yeah, especially as we move into recovery phase, trying to get Team Rubicon or at least a bunch of volunteers to help start helping the community, for especially the people that lost their homes, because they're gonna need a lot of help dealing with the debris and management and getting back on their feet.
Yes, yes, yep. All right. Well, thank you, sir. When you go to our Merge Empower Solano, if you could drop your links in the chat, that would be great, so people know how to reach you and contact you. And I wish
Yeah,
you
add me on Facebook. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. If you want to shoot me a message on how to set up a go bag or just general preparedness. So
okay. I might just call you. I might just call you in a few minutes, play. Okay, Jason, I'm taking a picture. All right. You take care, okay?
thank you.
Awesome. And to everyone that's watching, you will be here for 2 Fridays in a row, and we'll let you know who we'll be interviewing. And this has been informative and a lot of fun. And we are going to be talking to some other unsung heroes in disaster preparedness for the next 2 Fridays during Disaster Preparedness Month, which is this month. Thanks again, Jason.